Assalamu alaikum. A very good evening to all who are watching us, who have joined us, and who are with us today. My name is Samira Sohani. I'm the head of Research Advisory and Training Unit of Bangladesh Rating Agency Limited. Every month, BDRAL arranges a webinar addressing significant contemporary issues of the economy and the business. Today, we all are gathered here to discuss about recovery, resilience, and sustainability of National Budget 2022-23. So before starting the discussion, let's get introduced to our panelists. We are very, very privileged to have here Mr. Anis A. Khan. Sir is the former chairman of Association of Bankers Bangladesh Limited, Independent Director of Trust Bank Limited, Independent Director of Summit Power Limited, Director of ACI Limited, and many more. Welcome to our webinar, sir. Okay, so we are also very honored to have here Dr. Mohammad Helaluddin. Helaluddin sir is the Director of Research Unit of Center on Integrated Rural Development for Asia and the Pacific. He is also professor of Economics Department of Dhaka University. Welcome to our webinar, sir. And we also very, very glad to have here Zara Jebin Mahmood ma'am. Welcome to our webinar, ma'am. Zara ma'am is currently playing the role of the CEO of Dun & Bradstreet Data and Analytics Private Limited. And last but not the least, we have our CEO, Dr. Said Abdullah Al-Mamun sir. Sir is playing the role of the moderator in today's program. So before handing over to Mamun sir, I want to add that we will have a question answer session at the end of the discussion. If any question arises from the audience, please enter your question and we will get to you. We will answer your question at the end, of course. Now, I would like to request Mamun sir to start the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Samira, and respected panelists of today's session, and my colleagues, and all the participants and who are listening today. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our great privilege indeed to organize different contemporary, like webinar on different contemporary issues, to create a platform of listening from the experts from the industry. So as a knowledge-based organization, BDRAL, as a part of the global company like Dun & Bradstreet, always try to promote the philosophy of the truth, finding the truth from the data. So as per that point of view, we want to explore the different contemporary issues, and we love to listen and to enrich ourselves with the viewpoints and the perspectives of the experts of that particular area. So today we have also very esteemed and honorable panelists who are with us today. Hope we all will be benefited from today's discussion. So in this case, I would like to take privilege. Can you see my PPT? Yeah. Would like to take the privilege of presenting the key backdrop of today's program. The title is National Budget 2022-23, Recovery, Resilience, and Sustainability. The main philosophy of picking this title is that recently we all know we passes through acute pandemic across the world, and we are not also out of that impact. So recovery is obvious issues in that respect. And national budget is knocking in our door. That's why the recovery issues again came with its own importance, that how the budget as an instrument help us to achieve our expected recovery or achieving the resilience that will sustain the recovery. So from that point of view, we put our title that how national budget can be instrumental to achieve the recovery and help us to build the resilience and the sustainability. So BDRAL as a glance is a Dun & Bradstreet SAM company, and it was incorporated 2008, and it has almost conducted 28,000 SME rating and 200 corporate entities rating we have already done. And as we mentioned, this is a subsidiary of the Dun & Bradstreet same company, and Dun & Bradstreet is a 200 years old global company, and it has more than 400 million business records. Almost 90% of the Fortune 500 company rely on the DNB data. And we are very fortunate that we are working as a part of that a global company where X4 presidents of the USA were the employees. So this is the legacy of Dun & Bradstreet. And Dun & Bradstreet has almost 200 offices around the world and 400 million business records and almost 100 case quality checks. And Dun & Bradstreet same, it has the operation in 67 markets in South Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And it has mainly 7 lines of business: risk management, rating agencies, credit bureau and solutions, sales marketing solution, economic analysis group, research advisory, and the financial technology solution. In fact, from the data perspectives, it gives the 360-degree solutions. And BDRAL exclusively look after the rating agency operations of the Dun & Bradstreet SAMs in Bangladesh. And our core focus is then credit rating company. We, as a domestic credit rating agency, we do the credit rating underlying the license by the BSEC and the recognition of the Bangladesh Bank. And we also deeply involved with the economic analysis, industry analysis, business advisory. And one of the approaches of our credit rating is that we do business analysis to find the truth from our analysis, deeper insights to derive the ratings. And also we try to ensure the advisory services from all sort of business analysis perspectives. We have also continuous learning initiatives and different learning programs and trainings. And we also do publication on the SMEs on the Bangladesh. And the underlying philosophy of our analysis from BDRAL perspectives is that we want to go for better insights, because we all know that better insights is the prerequisite of the better decision making. So that will lead the ultimate business performance as well. That's why we say better insights, better business. And with the obligation, like fiduciary obligation, BDRAL is very keen to ensure the highest credibility of the credit rating, because through the credit rating, the information we produce, that will be helpful for sustaining the economic growth. And the national budget is our today's issues. As we know that there is a spike of the size of the national budget, particularly from last 22 decades. We can see that it has, in terms of the size, it has grown significantly. I just showed it so that we can get a backdrop to continuing our discussion and listening from our expert. And this is the last 2 years so that we can see the trend. And this is the composition of almost last 1 decade, like how the budget composition, the focus of the budget has been shifted. And if we see this graph, we can see that the significant shift has been happened in the transportation and the communication sector, like almost from 16% to 25%, like of the budget allocation has been shifted. and education and technology as well, and public administration, which is also required for implementing the budget, which also get due attention. On the other hand, we found one of the very sensitive factors, that is social security and welfare, particularly in the post-pandemic period. This is a very critical part. But we found that in the last 1 decade, it, in terms of percentage, it was the lesser priority. It reduced from 5.3% to the 3%. And the budget deficit, we found that like the expected budget deficit, like before pandemic, it was around 5 years, but it is expecting around 6+%. And this is the inflation trend. As we know, the global inflation trend is increasing, and our inflation trend also, we can see that this is one of the highest for last 3 years, in fact, during pandemic. And this shows the comparison of the inflation. So with the global inflation, in 2021, we found the global inflation is 3.4%, but our inflation rate is much higher than average global inflation, and the pressure is mounting. On the other hand, like total tax revenue trend is positive in spite of the pandemic. We found that there's a growth, and we are expecting the growth of our tax revenue. And as we all know that one of our key achievement of economic growth, that we have almost stable and on an average more than around 6%, around 7% of the economic growth. On the other hand, we can find is a global GDP growth rate is significantly dropped during the pandemic period. And interestingly, even during the pandemic period, when we found that the global growth rate is going negative, we are able to achieve 3.5% growth rate compared to the global GDP growth rate. And this is the per capita GNI. In last 2 days, the media is overflooded with these informations, and it really makes all of us, all Bangladeshis, feel happy. And also analysts being more skeptical that how we can get the advantage of it to build a more balanced economy. And this is one of the important concern, in fact, for us, that the total tax revenue to the GDP ratio. In that case, we found that our total revenue to GDP ratio, which in fact measures the tax like debt repayment capability of Bangladesh, it is 7.7% of our GDP, which is in fact lowest in the overall South Asian region. So this is overall, we can find that we have a lot of good indicators as well as a few concern as well, because as we know, economy or any individual firm, even in an individual economic entity, is nothing free of risks. Now, concern is that in spite of a lot of uncertainty in the last pandemic, particularly, Bangladesh has shown as a very strong economic capability, as well as in terms of the GDP growth, as well as the strong capability of the economy, like recovery from the crisis, particularly handling the COVID situation and immunization. In terms of the immunization, that we are we have the fifth position of the immunization. So having as a mixed situations, we are waiting for our new budget. So this is our privilege to listen from our experts that how the current upcoming budget can help us to boost up all the positive indicators and to tackle the risk points of the economy. So at the first opportunity, I would like to invite Mr. Anise Khan. Is a very eminent business professional, I must say that. He was an ex-banker, but I love to, because we are the big fan of, we have been grown to see the professionals like Anise Khan. So, sir, we want to listen from you about that, like the mixed situation, mixed economic situation, which is a very like common phenomenon in every economy. So, how the coming budget can address our recovery issues in a faster way to minimize the risk point. Like one of the risk point we say is that like our tax revenue growth might be faster.
Thank you, Dr. Sayyid Abdullah Mahmood. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon to Dr. Muhammad Hilaluddin, to Zara Mahbub, and all the other viewers who have tuned in. I hope you're all doing well. I would first like to thank BDRAL for welcoming me to this webinar, inviting me. And just a little personal note is that I have been involved with BDRAL from its very inception. So in a very humble position, I used to serve on the board twice. Once when I was in IDLC and then in Mutual Trust Bank. And both the times I was very happy to bring those two banks, two financial institutions into BDRAL. I'm also particularly very close to the leaders of BDRAL, Mr. Rajesh Mirchandani, absolutely legendary figure in the whole world, I would like to say. And Sir Fiscal Capacity, who worked very hard for setting up BDRAL in the early days and who's no more working here by his own choice. And then now we have Siddharth working very hard. So having said that, it gives me extra pleasure to join this webinar. Dr. Mahmood has given the figures, and we are talking about recovery. We are talking about resilience. We're talking about sustainability. I'll address these issues in a few minutes. But I would like to highlight first some reports that I have got in my hands, some information, which is public knowledge, but I would just like to highlight here. The Spectator of the United Kingdom, they have an index, and they've recently given the total GDP growth in 10 years in the selected countries, 26 countries. And our finance minister has highlighted that recently in a cabinet meeting. So Bangladesh has recorded the highest economic growth amongst a list of 26 countries in the last 10 years. And it has expanded 188% at current prices. I'd just like to say that the country's GDP size was 102 billion in 2009, that's 13 years ago. Then it stood at 274 billion last year, and very recently just crossed a landmark, 300 billion. Tremendous. More importantly, the figure which I always look at and which I always like is that so-called Big Mac index. How much you pay for a hamburger in New York, how much you pay for it. Well, we don't have hamburgers here, but there is an index which publishes. So how much you pay for it in various cities of the world. So we have the purchasing power parity index, which I really love this. And this is published by the International Monetary Fund. And we happen to be the 30th largest economy in the world if you bring in purchasing power parity, because our takas go much longer here than it would go in Dubai or in Singapore or in Hong Kong or Paris. So this I wanted to highlight. COVID struck us very badly. The country was made immobile. The roads around my house were very quiet. Nobody ventured out of the house. In fact, also because we were absolutely traumatized. My own brother perished in June of 2020 from COVID. And you know, a lot of stalwarts of the country, Mrs. Nilufar Manzoor, Professor Jamilur Reza Chaudhary, Professor Anis Zaman, so many stalwarts we have lost. So we all became terrified. So we remained indoors, but we kept on working from home. So that was a recovery, I would like to say. And I'd like to add the word resilience to that too. The fact that we all continue to work from home. Just to exemplify, I happen to have the opportunity to teach at a certain private university. So I did start taking classes at the university, but COVID struck. But I never stopped teaching. Just in about a month or two, the technological tools were put in place, and I started teaching again. And the students were all there. And throughout, we have maintained that. It's only very recently that we have started in-person. So you see how we have recovered on the educational side, and people generally. I just give you one example, and how resilient we have been. Even the students, they also were able to come in with laptops, afford the bandwidth, the parents afforded the bandwidth, etc. Now, on a larger scale, on a broader scale, on a global scale, the Prime Minister was very quick to announce the stimulus package. It was 1 lakh crore targets. The problem was then with implementation of that package, because bankers were not going to work. Bankers were dying, you know. So they were not going to work. So it became very difficult. But then in the beginning, what was done was that salaries were dispersed, especially for the government workers. It was very important to keep them going. So that was done. So that was another, recovery. And soon after, there were various stimulus packages given. And even recently, I sit on the board of a certain bank, and we are still giving stimulus packages. So that recovery and resilience has been extremely strong. And just Dr. Mahmood said that Bangladesh, as far as the COVID vaccination rate is concerned, is one of the best in the whole world. And that's reflected in the very low infection rates and that's now. Now look at what is happening in Shanghai. Completely closed, one of the world's most vibrant, biggest cities, and very important for everybody in the whole world, because the output that comes out from Shanghai goes to the whole world. And also now Beijing is going into total lockdown. It's a disaster for the supply chain, or even for our garment industries, because trucks are not moving to the ports. China has a power problem. They have a coal production problem overall. So we need China to spring back and recover. It's very, very important that China is resilient and China recovers from all these afflictions that it has got. There are some other countries which I understand there has been a resurgence of COVID. And I've just read a report yesterday that in the United States, they're saying that millions of people will be infected with new variants in the fall this year. So in our country, now, this moment, it couldn't be better. It is ticking like anything. You saw the domestic tourism. They were absolutely buttressed and they were battered, the industry. Many people lost their jobs, but in the last season, I think they made up a lot. So it is important that now I come to sustainability, that we sustain this recovery. It's very, very important. Yesterday, I went to a certain event, and at the event managers came on stage and said first that please maintain COVID protocol. It is extremely important because you never know. If we let our guard down, again, if we get it, it will be a complete disaster. We don't want that happening. So having said that, having put those three together, and just a few things I will say before I end here, because I would like to listen to Dr. Hilaluddin and Mahbub. There are a few points that I wrote down, especially about social inequality. We spoke about per capita income, and as Dr. Mahmood said, also some analysts are saying, oh, it is not really right. And some people are making sarcastic comments. Where is the increase in my salary? Why am I having to pay more for the soybean oil, which I can't even find? So those points are there. But nevertheless, it's a landmark. And that the fact that we have crossed India, that's a great, great landmark. So whatever happens, we'll have those problems. That is about social inequality, which always leads to social unrest. That is why you need social security. The social security net we have got, like the slide we saw, that the social security allocation went down. In any case, the allocation is absolutely miserable. So the amount that is given to the poor people, 1,000 takas or something, is nothing. It is absolutely chicken feed. They're peanuts. So in my opinion, for the good of the country, for keeping the country happy, safer, to avoid social inequality, to avoid social unrest, income distribution must be fairer. And if that's not possible, at least do it through the social security network allocations. And these now you have the MFS, mobile financial services, of bKash and Nagad. You can send the money in an instant to the doorstep of all the widows and the freedom fighters and the poor people, wherever they may be in the country. And there are other points which I will address when I do the next chance. I think I have spoken enough in one go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You rightly pointed out some key issues, I think, which has not only given us the clue to carry on the discussion, but also create a strong base. Now, I have a specific curiosity from Dr. Mohammad Hilaluddin. Sir, we have seen that even during the pandemic, one of the key concerns we had about the agricultural supply chain, because still our internal customer significantly depends on the agroeconomy and the supply chain, which seems to very vulnerable as per the analyst. But during pandemic, we have seen that the agri supply has been, in spite of lockdown, it reasonably was stable. but whether it is sustainable in future or not, due to the increasing different global challenges and the inflation rising, is a concern we can see. So in these cases, particularly, so what do you think? What should be the budgetary focus in terms of allocation or other measures and the policy issues? So the fiscal policy priority should be for the sustainable, particularly agri supply chain.
Thanks a lot. I'm delighted to be here. And also, this is the first time I listened to Mr. Anise Khan. I have heard about him from so many people. I know he is a charismatic professional and also corporate figure. He's a model for many. And now I realize why he is called so. And distinguished other panelists and all the other participants. I do teach in Dhaka University economics, so often we bring economic theories to explain practical phenomenon, but sometimes you will see that it's very difficult to apply economic theories straightforward. If we think in terms of like fiscal policy and also like fiscal resilience or economic resilience, then a couple of things. Like, if I want to answer your question first, then we know that for the first couple of months, COVID was around in Dhaka, also in urban centers. Our rural areas were not that affected, and also we know that rural are like people live in scatteredly there. Still, if you go out of Dhaka, you'll see that there are very few people in Bangladesh. In Dhaka, you'll see all the people here. So naturally, like there was, very few, contamination there, infection there, and that's why our agricultural performance was okay. And we know that in Bangladesh, in a specific year when we have good harvest, we know that our economy will stabilize somewhere. But if we have problem with our agricultural production, then we feel problem, because one of the main goal of Bangladesh government is to maintain food security, right? So for food security, we know that during crisis like in 2007-8, we saw there is no global market for rice. So when you are in a crisis, you will see there is practically there is no global rice market. That means you have to produce your own staple food. So in that case, we are capable of producing what we need, but sometimes, like if there is some supply shock, like there is a problem in like our areas, so maybe 15-20 lakhs of like ton of rice damage, and because of that, there are speculation. Sometimes there are speculation that there will be problem or crisis next, and business people sometimes, if they speculate in terms of economics, there is nothing wrong with speculation, so they may hold their supply for future opportunities. In that case, the crisis comes there. So our supply chain, agricultural supply chain, was intact, and that's why we didn't see the problem with our agricultural prices. But now we know that in Bangladesh, if we look at the fiscal policies and monetary policies, in the last fiscal policies or budget, you see that growth target was 7.2%, but inflation target was 5.3%. So inflation target is 5.3%. What does it mean? It means the government expects inflation to be 5.3%. And we have doubt about government figures on inflation. Kind of like in many countries in the world, they try to kind of understate some figures like inflation, overstate some figures like growth. So it's kind of like, it's not only for typical for Bangladesh, but for many countries. If you take like 7% inflation rate till 71, price level price level is supposed to be 35 to 40 times now compared with 71. So if your price level becomes like 40 times, that means your input cost also becomes 40 times. So you have paid like 200 taka for per kg of beef, and now you're paying 600 taka. It is driven by like inflation, right? Now that as Mr. Anisha Khan said, distribution should be fairer. So how to make it fairer? You are saying we should produce our own production of food. Now land, 74% of our land is to rice production. We are keeping rice prices down because we want to, feed everybody with lower prices. And that's why those who are producing rice, they are poorer among all the people in Bangladesh. So it has implication, right? So everything is going up, but if certain products, certain prices you are keeping down. Now the question is, if you look at fiscal measures, now you are utilizing fiscal measures like subsidy to keep your rice prices down. What you are doing, you are subsidizing cost. But the question is, without subsidization, it could be like per month of paddy, it cost would have gone to 1600 taka. Now it is like close to 800 taka. But if the price is close to 800 taka, what is the gain to the farmers? Nothing. If the price falls below 800 taka, what is the gain to farmers? They're losing. And now agriculture is losing attraction because agriculture is becoming less attractive compared with other sectors. And we have studies that in 1990, 58% rural households used to be agricultural households. Now it came down to 38%. Whereas 23% of rural households used to be non-agricultural. Now it is 41%. That is agricultural, people, they are switching to other. So we have to use our fiscal measures to bring general equilibrium. So you have to make everything profitable. Now, is it the function of government? No. But still, we see that there are fiscal measures by government. Now the question is how to utilize these measures. Now, if you look at the current crisis of like say oil, I would say government has to be careful about implementing their fiscal policies. When you are saying like oil prices, it will be taxed like value-added tax on your import, and it is value-added tax. If international price goes up, tax goes up. So it is like double effect. So there should be some set rules, so that automatically there is some kind of stabilization impact. So how to do it? If you could say like 10% or 15% tax, but the maximum is taka 10 per liter. So automatically it will stop somewhere. Now, if we look at the resilience, it's like fiscal capacity. So the fiscal capacity we are talking about. Now, what happened in like during this crisis? Government collects taxes from those who are rich. Now government has a stimulus package. With that 1 lakh crore plus, government is paying them as loan. Whereas the government is supposed to collect taxes from them. So when there is a recession, your tax collection drops. Then as a public sector, government has to spend more. Now, if government has to spend more and they're collecting less taxes, how government can do it? So government has to have like some kind of reserve, some kind of build-up capacity that government can spend from. That's why it comes like borrowing. How much you have borrowed in the past? Like in Sri Lanka, they have borrowed too much during normal phase of economy. Now, when there is a crisis, they don't have borrowing capacity, and also they have obligation to pass borrowing. And there's a disaster for Sri Lanka. For Bangladesh, what I'm saying for the next budget, we have managed very nicely the last one, but this episode will show up in future. So we have to make our health facilities ready for that. We have to arrange our people to protect themselves for future such happening. So are we allocating enough for that? That will add to resilience, right? Are we allocating enough? Like say in the last couple of years, last 2 years, we didn't have enough fund for immunization. Then government had to cut down it. But we have obligation to external debt, but it's not too much now. But if we have like too many cosmic projects, then we'll have problems like Sri Lanka. Still now we are okay. Now, if you want to increase your fiscal capacity, then what we need to do, we need to, get efficiency. Efficiency in terms of spending. We know that our spending is constrained, and we need to have like efficiency in terms of collecting, revenue. So in that two ways, we can improve like what we are spending for one specific project. We could have done it by 60% of what we are spending now. If we can cut down, then we can build up reserve for our, we can borrow less. And another thing is we call in economics, I'll put down my lecture. Another thing is like in West, there are like set rules, because policy rules, and there are activism. So in Bangladesh, what we see, like for political purpose, sometimes there are some projects during election, there are some projects, some overspending. But if we have some set rules, how much we can, we can borrow, how much deficit we can make, then what happens, that set rule will create buffer for us. Now, as you mentioned, it's 6.2% of our GDP. This is the deficit budget. And you know, in the last budget, our ADP was 2.25 trillion taka, right? And our deficit was 2.14 trillion. That means our ADP is entirely borrowed funded, right? That's why we have to be cautious about projects in ADP. We are spending all of our tax and non-tax income on our non-ADP budget, what we call cholti budget, right? So in that way, we have to spend less on that. We have to save from that tax income. So in that way, we can kind of like make buffer for our future actions. But now I see we are fine, but it doesn't take long to see ourselves in a troublesome situation. Thank you. I can, if question comes, I can talk later. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us a wider view, particularly the cost efficiency is one of the key for maintain the resilience. So we'll come with that cost efficiency issues. But before that, we want to listen from another eminent business professionals, Jara Mahabub, who look after the Dun & Bradstreet data analytics in Bangladesh as a CEO. So, Jara Mahabub, in other elements like as in cost and like budgetary allocation and tax revenue, which has been highlighted by Professor Helal. So along with this, one of the key areas is essential for achieving recovery and particularly building resilience, that is the enability or readiness of our human resources. So we would like to listen from you that, like, how much we are giving focus is a national policy, as well as what should be the focus or priority of our coming budget to invest and to design the policy for building the capable human resources and upskilling our next generation. So how do you expect the from the policymakers to take care of these issues, readiness of the employees and the next generation for building a more resilient economy?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahmood. Assalamu alaikum, Shubha Shundha, and a very good evening to everybody. Thank you once again, Dr. Mahmood, and the BDRAL team for having me on this webinar. I'm particularly delighted to be here with Dr. Mohammad Helaluddin and my very respected Anis Khan, our Anis Bhai. So indeed, the last couple of years have taught us about resiliency in its most challenging form. We never thought that we or our generation would see a pandemic and see a global shutdown. So I'm grateful that we are all well and we're able to be here today discussing recovery, resilience, and sustainability along with its implications on the budget and what budgetary changes or additions can enable us to move forward in a strong manner. A very, very big congratulations to us as we move forward towards a 7.25 GDP growth rate, as well as the increase in our per capita GDP. So these are exciting times, but then Dr. Mohammed Helaluddin's note is also very cautionary. So for economic recovery and resilience, I think our human capital is one of the most important places where we need to focus. It has to be developed in such a way that we can reallocate into new ventures and roles in order to recover successfully from the losses that we may have made during COVID, which we did. And what has happened is we have a lot of graduates, we have a lot of skilled labor, as we say, but unfortunately, there's a huge unemployment that is prevalent in our country as we speak. We all know that during COVID in the South Asian region, the Asia Pacific region, there were more than 81 million jobs that were lost. But other countries responded by focusing on freelancing, focusing on, when people switch to being at home, they quickly reskill themselves and upskill themselves to meet demands that sprouted up afresh during COVID times. So that is something where we need to start focusing on. We need to skill our human resources so that they in our basic education system, we go to school, we learn something, we memorize, we come back, we study, we go back to the universities, the classrooms and the universities, and we just spit it out. That's the form of education that we have experienced in Bangladesh for years. Unfortunately, that does not make us sustainable. That does not make us quick thinking. That does not give us the ability to operate laterally. So these are skills that we have to borrow from the West. We have to train ourselves. We have to invest in training our youth, focus on skill development, focus on generalized skills developments like management, like marketing, like accounting, as well as basic ICT needs. If you talk to anybody, they will tell you, I'm looking for work, but if you ask them, what is it that you can do? They'll look at you and they will say, I've got a BBA, but I don't know what I'm good at. So the ability for universities to train people to be employed, the gap between education sector as well as the corporate sector, the employment sector, that needs to be bridged. So there's a lot of investment work that we need to do as far as human capital can be developed and has to be developed. And I believe our focus, as we have seen in the budget, you've shown us the numbers, there's a lot of focus on education, and that is at the core where we have to address it. I have a lot of notes, but I think our conversation will get a lot lingered. So I'm happy to address more questions later.
So thank you very much, because you have addressed such an issue which is related with the all variables of the recovery and resilient model, like upskilling or making our human resources more capable will help us to increase the productivity and reduce the cost. So upskilling and increasing the human resources is also in one way is helpful for minimizing our cost. So I think you're highlighting, and the Dr. Helal's highlighting and the SAR's highlighting is connecting the dots and creating a big model. So which is, I think the audience are enjoying.
One point I wanted to mention is we can build bridges and have projects and factories and state-of-the-art organizations, but if we don't have the proper human resources to work in these organizations, we will always have to look out to Sri Lanka and India and bring people to run the CXO level of garment factories. We'll have to bring in project managers to build our bridges. So we need to focus on ourselves and build our resources.
Yeah, thank you. And by this time, we can increase productivity and minimize cost. That will be definitely helpful for achieving our resilient economy and sustainable economy. Now, we have again opportunity to listen from the eminent business professional Anise Khan. So along with the cost reduction, human skill building, and taking the cautionary fiscal policy, one of the key elements of sustaining our economy and recovering the economy and sustaining it is the boosting investment, both the domestic investment as well as FDI. So as we know that compared to other countries in terms of ease of doing business, we have still the scope for improving. Government is taking a lot of measures, quick measures and one-stop services. So improving the ease of doing business, and economic zones, particularly special economic zones, export processing zones are establishing with the top priority. So in that context, what should be the priority of upcoming budget for attracting more foreign investment as well as domestic investment, which is one of the founding pillars for boosting our recovery? So, sir, if you just highlight about this.
Thank you, Dr. Mamoon, for those questions. In fact, you had answered the question that you have posed to me through the various words that you used, or the concepts that you used. So there is not much for me to add over here, but first let me thank Dr. Mohammad Hilaluddin and Ms. Zara Mahbub for their kind comments, and of course for their very valuable inputs they have made to this discussion. They're very enriching it, and I'm sure the viewers are enjoying it very much and learning about it. Before I go over that, I'd just like to say that this is the third COVID era budget. And I was just now flipping through an article written by Dr. Devapriya Bhattacharya, a very good friend of mine. He was writing everywhere about the social safety net program. And he talked about his experiences with the late Mr. Saifur Rahman, the late lamented Mr. SMS Kibria, and then he talked about Mr. Mohit, whom we very recently lost. He was a fantastic listener. I've seen very few listeners in the bureaucracy in government who listened like Mr. Mohit listened. May his soul rest in peace. So in that article, he spoke about the social outreach, which at that time, I just mentioned, there's no MFS. It used to be distributed through the Bangladesh Krishi Bank, principally to the agricultural workers of the country. So that was one thing that happened. And then we used to have had something known as test relief or food for programs, but we don't have that so much anymore because of the new distribution system that's in place. Then also because to address the inequality, or some sectors were not getting the right allocations, came new types of budgets, and they were like the gender budget came, and then the children budget came, and the district budget came. So gender budget is not so bad, but district budget was tried out in 10, 12 different districts, including Tangal, and then it perished. It just died. So these things were not sustainable. You see, because of one of these subjects, 3 words of our webinar today is sustainability. So they were not, unfortunately, sustainable. Now, moving on to the certain points I have made, I'll come to your investment in a bit. We have a population bonanza. In Japan, it's an aging population. In Europe, it's an aging population. They don't have enough people to work. That is why people from Asia, especially from Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the Burma, Myanmar, and so on, they go and work in those places. But our generation, new generation that is studying in the universities, and Professor Hilal will attest to it, and I get to see it, they're extremely bright. They are tech savvy. They know technology. They know how to use their phones. They teach their fathers how to use the phones. So as smartphones get more and more cheaper, and people have it, and then the use of the internet, we don't know really where this country can go. And it can take over from India also in the IT outsourcing business, and maybe IT could one day outstrip garments industry in the export figure, because then we'll have more value retention. The garments, there's a lot of value that goes away, as you know, from the back-to-back LCs. Furthermore, with IT, they're saying that it could be a multi-billion $150 billion industry. So that is one place where we should concentrate. And I was earlier this afternoon with certain leading IT entrepreneurs of the country, get to learn from them. So this demographic dividend has to be used. And just again, I saw some figures while studying before coming here. 54% of the country's GDP is now services. Can you imagine that? So the transportation, the food, the hospitals, the schools, the banking, the insurance, etc., etc., etc. So it's absolutely fantastic the way it is happening. And with the disruption in the world, with technology, with the Internet of Things, the fourth IR, the artificial intelligence, the robotics, the driverless cars coming soon. Soon you will not need car garages at home. You will not, in fact, need spare parts because everything will be electric. You only will have to change the whole engine if something goes wrong. And the fossil fuels use will come down. And I worry about what will happen to the Middle Eastern countries when nobody will buy oil from them. What will happen to them? So it's the time now, in any budget, any place, is to invest in renewable energy. Absolutely. Wind and solar. Cheaper options has to be found for generating wind power. And the solar power that will be generated will feed into the grid. So there will be no more these power plants, huge, furnace oil, diesel guzzling power plants. Because I get to see how expensive it is to operate a power plant in my association with a certain company. So we have to, again, in what Zara said about skills development is extremely important. I'm also involved with the skills development forum. So every time we are talking about how we can improve skills, it is not, we want, when you go to the Middle East, you find Filipinos who are in the front office jobs, who are the secretaries, who are the hotel, administration people. And the Bangladeshi people, Sri Lankan people are the waiters and the cooks and the cleaners. We don't want that anymore. We just don't want that anymore. We want Bangladeshi people who will be technically savvy, and they will know how to fix air conditioners. They will know how to fix cars, as long as you have to fix the cars, and do similar other things that is required. So the scaling is extremely, extremely, extremely important. The tax net absolutely has to widen. You cannot have just a few 100,000 people paying taxes. That is ridiculous. And lots of people, there is an invisible economy. There is a black economy. The National Board of Revenue is very strict in taxing the people who are already taxed, but I think they should be more strict in bringing people into the tax net, so that we need that revenue for our nation. As just mentioned, that Sri Lanka is suffering from lack of tax revenue because the populist government came and slashed on the taxes. That's not the way to do it. I was just watching a Netflix movie, Louis XIV, and everywhere that he wanted to do something, he light up Paris in those days, and then put drainage there, he needed to tax more and more. We needed tax. It was very cruel to do it. But without the tax revenue, you cannot spend the money the government spends. And more importantly, it is the ADP implementation. It is so bad in Bangladesh, the ADP implementation. The money is always refunded by various projects because they cannot spend the money. So the program management is extremely poor. And you need, I think, an engagement with the private sector for these sort of program management. You just can't have everything from the government bureaucracy. You recruit people for 2-3 years on a contract, give them a good salary, and then they go back again, as it happens in Japan in the modern world. About the investment, before I conclude, is that yes, there are investment teams coming here. There is a US investment team in Bangladesh. I met them yesterday evening. And one thing the US ambassador said that American business people don't get up in the morning and saying, let me go to Bangladesh. It's not like that. So it is, they've got a vast, they have first to think about their own domestic production, their own domestic thing. Then only they will think of a country far, far away. So from the Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we have published the BBX, which is the Ease of Doing Business Index, which the World Bank has now discontinued. So we try to fill in the gap that has been published. And Bangladesh needs to still walk many, many miles before we can really get. The only good thing I see is in the special economic zones, because the land is scarce. So in one place, you get unencumbered land, there's no trouble. And then you get all the utilities. And if you are giving countries, like yesterday, they were talking about, the Prime Minister herself said that the US can have their own economic zone. They'll bring their own things. We will provide the local resources. We will provide our people, as I said earlier, let us upskill our people. Let them go and make Mercedes or BMW car parts in this nation, and so on. So in that way, I think that EPZs or SEZs are an excellent way to boost the exports of this country and to boost the GDP. Thank you. That's enough.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. for highlighting the key areas where we have the scope for improvement. Now, along with the investment, along with the skill, along with the human capital development and reducing cost, one of the key areas also Anissa has highlighted as in tax. And we have also seen that we have our GDP compared to the GDP growth, still we have scope for mobilizing the tax revenue. So in this respect, my particular curiosity from Dr. Mohammad Hilaluddin, that what are the policies can be taken, or what are the reforms can be taken, and in particular in the fiscal policy for increasing the tax net and widen the tax net particularly, and increasing the tax revenue. And as you also share in your prior discussion, that composition of the tax revenue and the borrowing amount for implementing the budget. So in that case, what is your expectation, or what should be the priority of the budget for increasing the tax revenue, which is more rational compared to the size of our GDP?
Thank you. Thanks, Jara Mahbub. She was emphasizing one dimension that's we always emphasize, because human hands. So during like COVID, Corona, everything was intact. Only thing is like our hands were kept immobile, right? Immobile. That's why everything stopped. So increasing efficiency of human resource, it's beyond question. We have to do it. And as Dr. Anissa Khan mentioned, the young labor force of Bangladesh is disproportionately bigger. What we call demographic dividend, right? So that means since we have higher proportion of people are younger, so they have less dependent now. So they will work, they will save more. More savings means more investment. More investment means more growth, also more employment, all those. But the question is, if they are not skilled, if they are not employed, internal or externally, then what happened? Even though they are young, they're the labor force, they are liable, they are kind of like liability, right? So that's why like we are wasting our demographic dividend partly. So we have to be careful about that. Now the question is, if we want to, improve our skill, one is like improving skill, another is like there is a skill mismatch, right? There are skilled people not according to our needs. We are sending people abroad, so there is a skill need there, but we are not giving that skill. That's why 1/3 of human resource in Philippines, they are earning almost 3 times of what we are earning. Because once you are skilled, then your productivity is high, so you'll be paid higher. So what do we want, like to create more better jobs? That's all. So to create more better jobs means highly paid job. So if I'm not productive, nobody will pay me high. So that's the thing. Now the question is, if you want to invest in like human resource development, so that investment is what? When I was in the home of my mom, during that concept period, right? From there, we have to nourish the child. And that's why saying like to take care of like pregnant mother, and then prenatal care, postnatal care, then the schooling, then the skill after education. And also to keep them like mentally sound, like there are other problems like addiction and all those things. So we have to ensure that they are not, they're protected from there. So we need like investment. Now that investment has to come from like tax money. And rightly you asked the question, why tax revenue, tax GDP ratio revenue is, revenue GDP or tax GDP ratio is so low. First thing is like, we have a tendency to tax more of those who are paying tax. And those who are lion's share, those who are not paying tax, they are not in tax net. They're always remaining out of tax net. That's the problem for Bangladesh. I am from a village in Bangladesh, like in Bhairab, Kishorganj, Bhairab. In my Upazila, I know that there are several growth centers. Land prices are very high. People are having like economic activities, and there in a village you can see like hundreds of people, even thousands of people having more than 1 crore taka, earning more than like say 12 lakh taka per month, and they're not thinking about paying tax. So what we call like all the growth centers, like millions of growth centers that are in Bangladesh scattered over the country, rather than focusing on urban centers. Like in Dhaka city, if you're employed, if your income is 3 lakhs plus, you have to pay tax. This is so unfair. I mean, with 2 kids, 1 family with 1 earning member, if your income is 3 lakh plus, you cannot survive. You can survive maybe barely in slums. And then we are asking you to pay tax. And people in like villages, they are living in their house, they're earning like more than 1 lakh per month, they're not in tax nets. So we have to, I mean, go there. And that's why I'm saying we need to kind of like decentralize not only power, I'm saying like for all of the government organs, we need to decentralize. And now those who are like, everybody is like, they're working in like upazilas, they're leaving their families here. They're kind of like going there, and then 6 months, 1 year, they're trying to come back to Dhaka, urban centers. What they're doing is like, they are not kind of like getting accustomed to the people living there. They're not getting information from there. They're not getting like those people who are capable of tax. They're not getting that information. So one of the problem with like, in case of collecting tax, ability to pay taxes. So when we say fair or equitable tax system, it says when you are taxing someone, look at their ability to pay. Those who are highly capable, you will tax them more. Now you are not going there, you are not weighing their ability, you don't know nothing about them, you're not taxing them, and you are just staying in urban centers and taxing more and more those who are paying taxes. I think we need to get rid of that. And those who are not paying taxes, you are saying, well, they have black money, so they are sitting in the underground, so we need to whiten them. They're in circulation. But the question is that if there is corruption, if you cannot stop corruption, if you can send money outside without any, strong restriction, then if you don't whiten, then money will flow out, and then they'll come back with like 2-3% incentive, like for remittance incentive. So those things we need to think about it. Only thing I will say, don't increase tax rate, don't overburden those who are paying taxes, and get some proxies of income. Like in Dhaka city, if you have a like car with certain CC, we can say how much income you may have. If you have a flat, we can say. So go to like villages. There were like say in earlier days in England, there was some window tax. Window tax means if you go to a house, if they have more windows, that means they are rich, tax them. At one point, what they have, they said, okay, I'm building home, but without no windows, because windows will bring tax people to go there and tax them. I'm saying there are many proxies about the income, hold them and tax them. And for investment, what I'm saying, like for investment, the doing business is that's what we are focusing about foreigners. Our investment is 99% plus is local. Our investors, FDI is less than 1%. And we are used to in this system. We know that there are like Lalfita Duratto, right? There are like, in every process we have to pay grease money, all those things, right? And in this situation, we are doing businesses, we are investing. The question is why people are not doing it, not because of that doing business index. Only thing is like there are problems with gas connection, there are problems with electricities, there are problems with human resources. Because I know that India is the second, India is getting second highest remittance from Bangladesh. How is it possible? It's a huge country, India, and they're getting. So we have skill demand, but we don't have that supply. So they are supplying that to Bangladesh. So I'm saying now a foreigner wants to come here and they know that Bangladesh is hiring Indians, Sri Lankans, others for doing their work. So if I go to Bangladesh, I have to hire foreigners. But if they could say, okay, I'm going to Bangladesh, I can hire the required skill labor in Bangladesh at a cheaper rate, then they'll come here. America is outsourcing. Why? What they're saying is like they can get cheaper labor outside in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in China. That's why they're like shifting their businesses over there. Even though there is this, huge, grievance from that working class. They are saying you are outsourcing. That means you are shifting our, businesses to outside. So we are losing jobs. And the American government is saying, well, if we don't let them go outside, they will shut down because you people are very costly. They cannot compete globally. So I have to send them to China. If they go to China and they repatriate the profits, I can tax them and then I can pay back to you as safety nets. But if you don't allow me, then what happens? Ultimately, it will shut down. Now in Bangladesh, we know that for RNG, we have like unskilled labor we are using. At a certain point, we have to increase our skill. Otherwise, for RNG, we cannot compete with others. So one is like for production, land, labor, organization, and capital, So only thing is like we are having in labor, labor intensive industry, we're having semi-skilled or unskilled labor. So that's the advantage, but it will go away. So in that case, we have to search for efficiency enhancement. Thank you.
Thank you. You widely again covered a model, shows us a model that how the tax revenue can be collected more, having the opportunity, because our GDP growth is consistent as well as the size of the GDP is wider. So we have that opportunity, particularly decentralizing the tax net, as you mentioned, I think, which is a new takeaway from all of us, I believe. And one point is more interesting, as you highlighted, that like the government sector, because at this moment our economy is significantly depends on government sector and the foreign remittance. And one of the key element of the government sector is our illiterate, unskilled women. Almost 50% of our population is women, and underprivileged women who had no privilege of education, no privilege of the minimum standard of living. They join in the sector, or they have been utilized by the sector, and they have built a sector which is the main pillar of the economy, which is bringing 85% of our export earning. So in that respect, like we want to listen from Ms. Jara Mahbub that like the coming budget, how coming budget should focus on the women, not only empowerment, I must not say that only empowerment, the women well-beings, we can say. For example, if I just highlight it, like a woman would like to do job in, suppose her office is in Gulshan, is a fresh graduate. So after a certain period, if she married and if she has a baby, then the first option came to her that whether I will take care of my baby or I'll do the job. Means even in the area of Gulshan, there is a very difficult to find like babysitting options. So this is a common scenario, childcare facilities. So this is the common phenomena in our cases, means we are ignoring the almost 50%, or we are understated the 50% of our population and their ultimate need to bring them in the mainstream economic activities. So in that case, like I think if Jara Mahbub Appa, our beloved Jara Appa, if you highlight that, what are the possible focus should have the budget, because budget tells us how government will spend. So what should be the priority of the budget for building enable environment for the women, not only organization specific as well as in a countrywide?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mamoon. Thank you so much, Anis Bhai and Dr. Helaluddin. I'm learning from all of you here today. But when you talk about women, Dr. Mamoon, I can go on for hours because I'll come to the budget a little later. The issue is when we have children, the first thing we think of is the baby is my responsibility. Why? Because that is how it has been built in our DNA. The baby is the responsibility of both the parents. As you see abroad, they give 18 months, or in some of the Scandinavian countries, they give 1 year paternity leave for fathers, right? It's a joint ownership. It's an M&A, all right? Equal joint venture to have a child. But over here, the mother gives up the job because a child is born. So it is very deep rooted. So if we can address it at the very basic, when a girl is born, if we start telling the child that you are going to be working, you are going to have your own profession from the very beginning, that child will take it upon herself to develop herself in such a way that when she graduates, she is confident enough to take care of herself as well as her own family. It's like a basic golpo bollam, karon. This is somewhere where we struggle. When I've been at Bragg Bank, 1,200 women working. Every time a girl gets married or is expecting a baby, Appa, now I'm going to take a break because, I have to raise the baby. Why is it the child? It's only the girl's responsibility. That's a very basic thing that we should go back and start asking ourselves. Why isn't there a support system? Because it is imperative on the woman to be responsible for her child's safety and security. This is unfortunate, and this is the thousands of years of patriarchy that is in our system. I don't want to start a debate here. I just want to highlight this because we tell our women to come in and shatter glass ceilings, but we have brought them up in glass cages. When you bring up girls in glass cages, you suddenly put them in a bank or in an IT company or any organization and you say, go, soar, break the ceiling. Are Baba, they don't even know how to speak aloud, because when we are growing up, when we want to do STEM studies, when we want to learn physics, you tell us, no, you don't have to go into subjects like that. When you develop a budget for us, you make sure that, we focus on education. We all want to become teachers. No, we want to go to space. We want to do neurosurgery. We want to do physics. So having said that, that is my passionate side coming out as a woman, as I have 2 daughters, as I have nieces and sisters and women all around us, 50% of this population, and as you rightfully said, 85% of the income coming in with RMG, 50% of the labor force, we are women. So yes, there was a women development plan put in place in 2011. There are there has been a gender-friendly budget that has been in place for quite some time now. The focus has to be on enabling us to go out there and contribute to the economy. Because if you don't develop us as human capital, you're losing revenue. We are 50% of your economic growth. So bring us into the realm. Make us more powerful, make us equal. Don't make us more powerful than men. All genders should be invested in. So as I mentioned earlier, as far as human capital development is concerned, you need to develop women so that we can have wings to fly, just side by side with men. Similarly, of course, developing all the infrastructure facilities, that should be something that is a focus of our budget. Developing and creating awareness amongst men, that should be in a curriculum. If you go and look at our primary school books, you will see that the mother is cooking, the father is driving, the father is going out to the office, the mother is helping the dadi or the nani do the cleaning and cooking at home. So why are you developing stereotypes in our children and in our nation? That is so backward looking, unfortunately. We want to go further. We are going to be a top economy in the next 10 years. So people like Samira and myself, we have to fight hand in hand with all of you out there. So the budget and the government has to keep us as a very important agenda on their development plan, as well as in the budget. Sorry, this turned out to be like a speech, but that's how passionately I feel about the women topic when we talk about it.
Thank you, Rapa. And I would like to take privilege to share one of the visions of BDRAL, that in fact 2 parameters we want to achieve about women. We want to build the best work environment for the women, and second one is that we want to increase the ratio. Women ratio is a 50%, 50% by next 3 years. So this is our bold initiative to creating the social impact from the BDRAL strategic point.
By including women, we will achieve the SDGs faster. I mean, goal 5, gender equality, goal 8, promote full and productive employment and decent work for all. All of these goals, ending poverty, food security, ensuring health, and most importantly, reducing inequalities. So if we put focus on women and also the third gender, and if we put focus on all genders, we can achieve these and become a much stronger nation.
Yeah, and we are very much privileged as well as a part of DNB. You know, Jarapa is also an example that DNB prefers, do not create a differentiation of the gender bias of putting leadership position. Also, Samira is another example of the BDRAL as well. And we really mean it to set an example to create a good environment.
Everybody wants to have women in companies. We want women in leadership roles. I know Anis Bhai had it in his agenda when he was at Mutual Trust to empower women, to bring women in the forefront. But it is the families. It is there are other strings that pull us back. So this is where I want private-public partnership to help women move forward in a 360-degree manner, not just affirmative actions at the workplace, but also from home.
Yeah, definitely. Because we are also part of a different family, and the major point or major purpose was to bring these issues in our discussion, that like we need the investment to ensure the best utilization of the 50% of bright brains. Like if we look at in schools or colleges or other things in the top merit list, if we put the top merit list of 20 top students, we definitely get almost more than 50% are women. Means if we cannot create the enable environment, not only as a farm level, also as a state level and the policy level, then we definitely lose the opportunity to take the services from the bright brains as well. So at this stage, would you like to add something?
Just one thing, what she's saying, to change the mindset up. As you said, 50%, 50%. In terms of percentage, you have to have affirmative action. Affirmative action means you have to hire more from female. But the question is not that. Question is, if you look at the labor force participation rate, women willing to work, that participation rate is only almost 36%, I guess, for female. If I didn't forget, something like that. So 2/3 of the women, they don't think that they should go for work outside. So it's a mindset up, right? It's a social construction. Now, if you want to, if you look at the target of government, to go to $12,500 US per capita income in 2041, which is to 2,500 now, it has to be 5 times. How could you achieve it? So one thing is, if you can bring all the families, because when you are dividing the raw income, female are there. Now 64% are saying we are not going to work. But you are dividing the entire by the total female force, right? If all of them work, then what happens? Then the pie will be bigger.
Exactly.
Second is how come we have to, if we cannot increase the participation rate, we have to increase our productivity 400 times. It has to be 500 times now. What do we have? So if we want to increase our income to that level, our productivity has to be 5 times that what we have. So it's increasing productivity at the same time, increasing labor force participation rate by female, and also like removing unemployment significantly. Because if you look at the statistics of like unemployment in Bangladesh, those who are working at least 1 hour in 2 weeks, they are employed in Bangladesh, according to BBS. So if this is the employment, then you can see 5, 6, 7%. But actually, if you see like those who are fully employed, unemployment rate is very high.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And now it's time to have some questions. Like if anyone would like to, we have with us the CRO of BDRAL, Mr. Sohail Khan, ACMA. So, and also other participants, like if you have any questions, please.
There is a question in the question and answer box.
Actually, thank you so much. Sir, I have a question to Dr. Muhammad Helaluddin. That it's a very wonderful discussion, and I listen to you, all of you. But I have a question that in the fiscal year 2021 and 2022, the first 9 months, our revenue was increased by 14.5%, tax revenue. But there is some reason behind this, that our all commodity prices increased. So in the next budget, if the budget is growth by double digit, then how the government is control the inflation?
Should I take it now? Should I take it now?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Definitely, like if you look at the monetary policy statement, always you will see that central bank will give the global price, index movement. If it is going up,
yes,
then it has a link with our inflation and also our inflationary measures, like how to keep inflation low. At this point, you see, in our policy, roughly 6% will be increase in our prices. When government say inflation is low, the common people think, okay, maybe price is not going up or going down. But inflation is low means price is going up, but it was 6% up last year. Now it's like 5.5% up. So yeah. Now the question is the global phenomena, what is going on here? There is disruption in global supply chain. And also like there are pressure on our reserve. And we see that there is depreciation of our dollar taka rate. So taka is losing value. So in that way, if your import becomes expensive, and locally, internally there is inflation, and then price of everything goes up. So it's very difficult to keep hold on inflation. But the question is, if there is a global shock, then you see that there was a drop in global GDP. Bangladesh could maintain somehow with positive rates, but still we are not unaffected. So if global is affected, then we will be affected and our consumers will be affected. The question is, we do not have to like set rice prices for taka 40 for everyone. It should have been like let the market drive the prices up, but for the bottom 20%, 30%, 40% people have subsidized prices, have some kind of like bigger operations, OMS operations to contain them. So I think like we have to scale up our safety net programs. If government cannot control inflation, and in this globalized world, I can control internal factors, but external factors, being a small country like Bangladesh, we cannot control. So we are kind of like recipient. We are receiving it, but consumers they will not understand, and they will create fuss, and media will create fuss, and that media, discontent sometimes keep prices up, going up. Now, if I look at just one example, like what government is trying to do is like control the prices of oil. So often that policies of keeping the prices low when there is a uptrend in the global arena. So you are exacerbating the situation. The market economy, what market economy says, if there is a sudden increase in demand or decrease in supply, there will be increase in prices. Let it be. In couple of weeks, suppliers will get motivated to bring higher supply, and then automatically price will drop. But the question is, when there is a lot of news in media and government comes and say, no, you cannot charge higher prices. If you charge higher prices, I'll go to your godown. Then they become scared. If they become scared, if they don't increase supply, then there will be deficit, and the crisis will remain, will persist. That's what's happening now. That's what I'm saying. If you follow the market economy, let the market economy roll, let the supply demand roll. If you want to control, build up your own supply, bring your matching supply, then you can control. Otherwise, using stick, you are kind of like distorting the market, and you are exacerbating the problem. And that's what's happening with oil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have two more questions, and then quickly we have another 5 minutes to finish. So there is a question that which model should be our budget focused? Like, should it be the focus of development or development focused budget, or the sustainability focused budget?
Is it
Which
to
should
me
be
or Anis bhai?
Anyone, any panelist can join.
Okay, I will just say one sentence only. I believe that any budget in this modern era of technological disruption and all this Ukraine war, etc., that's going on, and the supply chain problems and COVID pandemic era, it should be a dynamic budget. It should move with the times. It should be adaptable, and no single model is good. It should be a mix and match. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone would like to add?
Yes.
Yeah.
It should be, as Anis bhai said, it should have the mix and match, but it should have the sustainability lenses on. We should have the factors, the shock factors built in, so that we can be a little more resilient next time something comes up.
যেহেতু
Okay,
সবাই
thank you.
স্পিকিং, আমি এটা আরেকটুখানি বলি, এই ডিবেটটাই যে ডেভেলপমেন্ট দরকার নাকি সাস্টেনেবিলিটি দরকার, এই ডিবেটটাই আমরা ইকোনমিক্সের দিক থেকে একেবারেই লজিক্যাল নাই। আমার যে কোনো ডেভেলপমেন্ট মানে সাস্টেনেবল যদি না হয়, সেটা ডেভেলপমেন্ট না। তাহলে আমি আজকে আমার যে উৎপাদন যেটা হচ্ছে, যদি আমার ল্যান্ড ডিগ্রেড করে, আমার নদীর পানি যদি শুকিয়ে যায়, তাহলে সেটা তো আমি সাস্টেন করতে পারবো না। সেটা না করলে আমার ডেভেলপমেন্ট থাকবে না। ফলে ডেভেলপমেন্ট ইটসেলফ ইজ সাস্টেনেবল, ইট হ্যাজ সাস্টেনেবিলিটি ইনবিল্ট। তাহলে এখন ইকোনমিক গ্রোথের সাথে ডেভেলপমেন্ট এটাই বলছে যে ভাই, যদি আমরা গ্রোথ পাই, একজন রোবটটা যদি প্রোডাকশন করে আর গ্রোথ হয়, সবাই অনাহারে থাকবে, একজন যে রোবট অন করে সে ছাড়া, তাহলে সবাই না খেয়ে মারা যাবে। সেজন্য বলছে যে, যেটা আনিস ভাই বললেন, যে ডিস্ট্রিবিউশনটা ফেয়ার করতে হবে। ফেয়ার করা মানে হলো যে আমার ইকোনমিক গ্রোথ পাশাপাশি সেই গ্রোথের সেই পায়টার ডিস্ট্রিবিউশন। আর সেই পায় গ্রোথ যদি থেমে যায়, তাহলে তো ডেভেলপমেন্ট থাকবে না। তো ডেভেলপমেন্ট মানে আপনার ন্যাচারাল রিসোর্স বেস ধরে রাখতে হবে, আপনার নদী, আপনার সয়েল, আপনার পরিবেশ, আপনার এই যে আপনার যে ভূগর্ভস্থ পানি, সব ধরে রাখতে হবে। সেই ডেভেলপমেন্ট যদি হয়, সেটা সাস্টেনেবল হবে। আর যদি আপনার ডেভেলপমেন্ট না হয়, সাস্টেনেবল না হওয়া মানে ডেভেলপমেন্ট হয় না। সেজন্য সৌদি আরব আপনি দেখবেন যে তারা নিজেরা আগে রিচ বলতো, কিন্তু তাদেরকে ডেভেলপ বলা হতো না। এখন তারা অনেক কিছু করছে, তাদেরকে ডেভেলপ হিসেবে চিহ্নিত করার জন্য। ওই ডিবেট দরকার নাই, জাস্ট ডেভেলপ হলে হলো। ডেভেলপমেন্ট যে ডেভেলপমেন্ট হয়, আর আমরা এখন যে ডেভেলপমেন্ট দেখছি, আমার ন্যাচারাল রিসোর্স বেস যেটা আছে, যার উপর ডিপেন্ড করে সবকিছু হচ্ছে। আমি একটা এক্সাম্পল শুধু দিয়ে আমি শেষ করে দিব। আমাদের নবী ইসলাম বলছিলেন না, যে একটা কোরাল দিয়ে যে তুমি কোরাল দিয়ে কাটো, এই কোরালটা হলো তার ক্যাপিটাল। এখন আমাদের যারা ইকোলজিস্ট, তারা বলছে যে ভাই, কোরালের মাঝখানে যে এই যে কাঠটা আছে, সেটা ন্যাচার থেকে আসছে, যে লোহাটা আছে সেটা কোথেকে আসছে, সেটাও ন্যাচার থেকে আসছে। তার মানে ক্যাপিটাল পুরোটাই ন্যাচারাল। তাহলে আমি ন্যাচারকে যদি আমি অ্যাডজাস্ট করি, আমার ক্যাপিটাল যদি অ্যাডজাস্ট হয়ে যায়, ক্যাপিটাল ছাড়া প্রোডাকশন হবে না, আমার সবকিছু সিজ করবে টু ডিস্ট্রাকশন। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very nice example at the end. I think we are really short of time at this moment. We are really at the end of our program, and I'd like to take the privilege to convey our gratitude to today's esteemed panelists like Anise Khan, Professor Hilal and Jara Mahbub, and my colleagues from BDRAL, and all the participants to listen and to inspire us. BDRAL is very committed to ensure the high quality and the credible credit rating and business analysis to strengthen the financial infrastructure of the Bangladesh. And please pray for us, and thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Zaraman.